I have officially decided to return to my project TBR Zero. I have a lot of books. I have a lot of books that need reading. I have read many books, but I need to read a lot of these books. I last filmed an update for my TBR Zero project probably nearly 3 years ago, I think, and a lot has changed since then. I will quickly summarise what happened in the previous videos so you don't have to go back and watch them. It'd be lovely if you did, because that supported my channel, but I will summarise them for you. So when I started, I sort of gave a bit of an estimate of over 400 books. I was tracking everything on Storygraph, but I was tracking everything across my shelves, ebooks, audiobooks, my parents' shelves because I have access to them, my in-laws' shelves, anyone who I knew what their shelves looked like. I was including their books on my TBR, and I think that that's a mistake because then it became very unwieldy. I couldn't really give a firm number on anything, and I just don't really like how that worked. I also mentioned in those videos that I got a bit derailed, so I started the project and then almost immediately I had a massive library reservation list come in. I thought they were going to come in really sporadically, but I got about I think 19 books all at once, which I then had to work through and wasn't reading off my own shelves. And at the last minute, applied to start university, and so much of my reading then got shifted and pivoted to reading for my courses. And over the last couple of years, that's really where I've been. I've been mainly focusing on reads for uni, and then I'll have like brief respite periods where I read something really easy or what I might consider trashy, something really bingeable, just to ease my mind at the end of each semester. So I wasn't really doing much reading of my own books. So yes, that's to summarise what's happened so far. In the interim, in the time that I haven't been sharing my updates on the project TBR Zero, I have been reading my books, and I had a quick look through. I have read 159 books off of my own shelves since then, but those aren't necessarily all from when I started that project TBR Zero. In many cases, those were books which have come into my life because of university, like Convenience Store and Measure for Measure by Shakespeare, all sorts of books that I just was studying and I had to buy them in because I like to annotate them and so I like to own them. So I have read stuff that's off my shelves, but it's not necessarily stuff that I had when I started this project TBR Zero. So where are we now? As I said, I've kind of simplified how I'm counting the books, but I just really needed a firm number. I needed to know exactly what I was working with. I have made the decision not to include non-fiction books, mainly because a lot of those I like to dip in and out of. I take a long time over reading them. I don't necessarily just sit and read a non-fiction book in one go, whereas a fiction book I will try and work through in one go. So I have included fiction, poetry, plays, and things like the books that I'm reading with my kids that are waiting to be read with them. When I say I'm including poetry, I'm even including the little ones like this, which is just one poem in a little volume. So my number is based on that. I went through my physical shelves and I went through my Kindle app. I've been a bit stunned into horrified silence over the number that I've come up with. I have counted 432 books just in physical, ebook, and not including any of my non-fiction. So that was quite horrifying. I've decided though to give myself a little win today, and I'm going to up that number a bit to 440. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you about the last 8 books I read, just so that I can tick off 8 books from my 440 number. So we're going to start with 440 and go from there. So my goal, I know the title is Project TBR Zero, but my actual goal for this is not to have 0 books on my TBR. It's just to bring it down potentially to under 100. Okay, tangent cam. The reason I've called it that is because I was inspired to start my project because of another creator called Mercy's Bookish Musings. And if you do go back and happen to watch my first videos on this, I do explain it there. I think she's brilliant and she really did reduce her TBR down. So that's why it's called that. And that is why I'm sticking with that, because I still want to honour the fact that I was inspired by her. I just think the number that I have so far is too big. It's too overwhelming. I look at my bookshelves and I don't really know where to start. I find I forget what a lot of these books are about because I got really excited about them when I picked them up in charity shops or when I was coming up with an idea, like I really wanted to read the backlist of Booker prizes, picked up a whole bunch of books from those lists and then sort of forgot what they were about. I want to reduce that overwhelm. I want to sort of know and have an idea in my mind of what it is that I still have to read. Right, I wanted to come in here quickly and just make a comment on overconsumption because this is a lot of books. I am well aware that this is a lot of books. And if you are present in any space that is to do with book social media, BookTok, Bookstagram, BookTube, you probably have seen the amount of content that relates to book hauls, so bringing in books to your collection, and book unhauls, which come alongside those. Getting rid of books that either you haven't read or just large collections of books going out because you have so many books and you need space for your new books. And that is a pretty negative culture. I think there are some nuanced arguments about those who are book influencers, so people who make their living around books, that they are going to be having a lot of books coming in and a load of books going out. This in itself is not a video about this. There are loads of videos out there. I am not in this moment equipped to talk about it from some sort of experience or knowledge. But I do think that when you see this many books, 440 books is so many books, that I can't help but compare myself and to see how I fit into that conversation. And I do feel like there's a difference in that I have amassed these books slowly over time. I am not making content that is specifically around buying books in large quantities. I do make some content about buying books, mostly secondhand books and mostly just a couple at a time. Ones I really want, ones I've read from the library or something and then wanted to add to my collection. I don't make big book haul and unhaul videos. I think there is an issue with social media in general where that sort of culture is really pushed. So it doesn't matter what space you're in, whether it's books, whether it's any craft, hobby, whether it's cleaning, you're encouraged to keep buying. And that is a very negative culture to live in. Hopefully I've been a bit coherent, but yes, I feel like this is slightly different. I do want to read all these. I am not buying books because of some sort of see it, want it, buy it. Now, I do still want to read all these books. I'm not going to be getting rid of these books unless I read them and I really don't like them. Generally, I am trying to buy fewer books. I don't feel like I fit into this haul, unhaul culture, and I'm not going to sit here and try and encourage you to buy stuff. Just wanted to have a little tangent there. I am a massive mood reader, but also to reduce that overwhelm of how big my TBR is, I make myself mini TBRs. So every now and then I'll pick out a few books that I feel fit the mood that I'm in. And then as I finish a book, I will pick up a new one from the mini TBR. So this is my current one that I have just on the shelf there because I'm feeling the very sort of horror, spooky, maybe dark academia vibes. And I've been wanting to read N.K. Jemisin's The Bone Season for a while. So this is my current sort of mood reading TBR and it will change as my mood changes. Okay, let me tell you about the books that I've read, the last 8 books. Very briefly, I won't go into too much detail. So I Vampire by Jodie Scott. This is one of the oldest books on my TBR. This is quite a whirlwind. It's very absurd. If you like things like Temporary by Hilary Lichter, The Trees by Percival Everett. Anyway, it's got a very postmodern feel. So much going on in this book. It's really funny, but it's often commenting on corporate America in the 1980s. But it is a vampire, a 700-year-old vampire who meets an alien and finds out that essentially the human race is an alien experiment. And they're trying to turn the tides of what's going to happen to the human race. I feel like it descends into chaos by the end, but I really loved the beginning, so I don't even know how to rate this book. Susan Hill's The Albatross and Other Stories. The first story, The Albatross, is the longest. I would describe it as a short novella or long short story, and then it also has 4 other short stories in here. They are all brilliant in their own way. They are very subtle. They are intense and dark and brooding, but they're also very subtle, and I think they would really benefit from rereading. I think there's a lot of stuff to come out of this that hasn't come out on the first read for me, but I can see it there. I know there's more going on, so really intriguing collection, very dark. Okay, we've got The Tower at the End of Time by Amy Sparks. This is one I've read with my kids. This is the second book in a series. We read the first one, really funny. Think Oliver Twist, if Oliver Twist were like a 10-year-old girl and it was all set in a magical location. So our protagonist is a 10-year-old girl who is a pickpocket. She is having to live as an orphan with a really nasty character who makes her go out and steal things from other people. And then she finds her family, not her family, but a wizard and a wooden spoon with a Scottish accent. And it's just really fun. And so this is book 2, and we really love this one as well. They had to go to the Hopscotch Championships and ask a question to the Tower at the End of Time to try and save some of their friends and things. And it's really, really brilliant. Right, we've got Farzana and the Moon by Matt Wilvan. This is another one where I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. If you read The Secret History and those beginning chapters where they're in the classroom and they're really talking about philosophy and how civilizations work and all those really intense academic discussions, if you enjoyed those chapters, I think you'd probably quite enjoy this. There is a lot of philosophical discussion. Most of the dialogue between characters is philosophical in nature. It brings in more modern philosophers. We're following a university student who is studying philosophy and the girl he meets who is a literature student, and the impending nature of the fact that they have to join society, or potentially they have to join society at the end of their degree. They have to find real jobs, that they can't just rely on their philosophical understanding of the world. They can't just have these ethics and ideas about how society should run. They actually have to contribute to society. They have to pay their bills. They have to do all these things. And it's coming, and how each of the characters, because we have the couple, we have the boy and the girl, we never find out the man's name. Farzana his best friend and his girlfriend and their different attitudes to what's coming. Okay, we've got Near Distance by Hannah Stoltenberg and translated by Wendy H. Gabrielson. This one I got from the Republic of Consciousness book subscription a few years ago when I had the money to be part of book subscriptions. This one is published by Weather Glass Books, a small independent publishers. This is another really brilliant one. It's quite plotless. There is a plot, but this is character driven rather than plot driven, so there's not a lot of plot to go on. But what's happening is it's a mother and daughter. We're following the mother who always feels a little bit on the outside of society. She always feels very observant rather than participating. It makes you feel as the reader a bit like you're on the outside looking in, like you're some sort of voyeur into their lives. And the mother herself feels like a bit of a voyeur looking into her daughter's life. She's so distanced from it. And as the book goes on, as the somewhat plot drives, we start to work out how the daughter feels about this and what she wants from her mother. And it's not necessarily wrapped up in a neat bow at the end, but it's a very wonderful reflection. There's so much in this that's interesting. I highly recommend this book. Okay, we've got The Keep by Jennifer Egan. I haven't read anything by Egan before, but she is a Booker-nominated author, so I was intrigued to read something from her. I actually recommended this to my husband before I'd even read it because the blurb sounded so good and he was looking for a book recommendation. So he read it, and then as soon as I saw he'd finished it, I was like, I'm going to have to read this just so that we can talk about it. And I'm so glad I did, because I don't think I'd have got to this as soon as I did. Without that, I think this would have sat on my shelves for quite some time. This one is one of those fascinating ones where we're not quite sure who is telling the story. The story is being told about Danny, who ends up going out to meet his cousin to help build this sort of castle into a hotel, but we're not quite sure who the narrator is. Then you get these interjections from someone in a prison who is writing the story as part of a creative writing class, and we don't know who he is. We don't know if the story about Danny is completely fictional. We don't know if he is one of the characters in there. There's a lot of talk about what is creativity, what is our imagination, how do we fire our imagination, where do stories come from. There are elements in this that are seemingly magical, but we don't know if that's just part of the storytelling process or if those things are really happening, or whether they're all in Danny's mind. I really loved this. I thought it was brilliant. The ending was a bit unusual. I wasn't quite sure what to make of that, but it did tie up something that happens early on where I was like, this is going to come back. I know this is going to come back, and it does come back at the end. Yeah, so really good. Really enjoyed that. Okay, next we have a collection of 3 short stories from Mary Shelley. I personally don't think these are to the standard of Frankenstein. I think there is a reason that Frankenstein is her most enduring work, the one that we still know today. However, there is a lot of interesting tidbits in this. I think you could really mine this for an understanding of Mary Shelley's attitudes to religion and to society. I think there's a lot of bits that come in about how she created Frankenstein, or some of the thoughts that she has in Frankenstein in this, but just not as well fleshed out as Frankenstein. I just think that's the best one. I also feel like I should say the final story in this, The Evil Eye, is a bit Orientalist and falls into racial stereotypes from their time of the savage other and the idea that all these people were in tribes and all those sorts of things. So it's a bit odd, but it's also potentially one of the most interesting if you was to study it academically. I also find it to be the most convoluted in terms of story structure. So much happens and you're not quite sure why different things are happening, and lots of different characters. It feels the most confused, but it potentially could be the most interesting to study. Okay, and the final one I've got is The Temple House Vanishing by Rachel Donahue. This one came to me as a surprise in a book box subscription years ago, and I just never got round to it. This one I would say is a blend between a mystery / crime novel and a dark academia. It is set in a Catholic boarding school. We have a scholarship student coming in to study with the Catholic schoolgirls. There is that idea of class difference, how she'll never fit in because she isn't from a wealthy background, and how she's always excluded. And then we have that interspersed with 25 years later, a journalist trying to work out what happened to her because no one ever knew. Her and her teacher disappeared and no one ever knew where they went, what happened. It was never solved. It gets solved through the course of this book. I think there are some very interesting themes going on in terms of what we in the future, looking back, pick out as important details about cases. There's a moment, and it's very subtle, and I love that it's subtle and it isn't picked up on too much. There is a poem that is written by the girl who goes missing, and then the journalist gets given this poem in the future and she sort of tosses it aside as the random scribblings of a schoolgirl, but actually it's so important to that girl. It says so much about what really happened, and yet it was just cast aside as sort of superfluous writings of a teenage girl. I think this is a really easy read, especially if you wanted to get into the dark academia and you weren't quite sure. This is so easy to read. It's much easier to read than The Secret History. It goes so quick. I read this so quickly. I thought it was great, and I think it would merit rereading as well, because I think there are some very interesting artistic and philosophical conversations happening as well. So there we have it. At the end of my first episode back, we've got from 440 down to 432 books on my project TBR Zero. Thanks for watching.